Manchester City. Now, I tried to script this video. I've had it planned for ages. I made this thumbnail months ago, maybe 6 months ago. God, this piece of hair is so fucking annoying. Problem with long hair. So I tried to script this video in the last week, and I couldn't completely script it top to bottom, but a few bullet points here and there. But Man City are not only not the same, they're very unpredictable. Basically, since Pep Guardiola's second season, which was, 17-18, which is 8 years ago, there's been a real security sort of thing with Man City. You can place a very good bet on where they're going to finish, and that's either been first, which is your likely bet, and the second one is, second. So they've already lost last year's Premier League, and the problem is they've lost, for me, their greatest player in history, and not only that, they've also lost, I would describe as a top 5 midfielder in history and the best Premier League midfielder in history. And without that Belgian midfielder, Kevin De Bruyne, I think they lose the last 3 Premier Leagues. I think Arsenal have 2, and Liverpool would have, obviously they did win last year's. Why would Arsenal have won 2? Well, you look at the crucial games in the 22-23 season. If Arsenal had beat Man City in any of those games, they would have won the Premier League. Why didn't Arsenal win them? Well, first of all, they kind of bottled it. And secondly, Kevin De Bruyne was amazing in both games. 23-24, Kevin De Bruyne didn't play as big a role in that season, nowhere near actually. But there was a game against Newcastle where it felt like Man City were running out of steam a little bit to me. And he came back and tore Newcastle apart on his own. And that, for me, just lifted the entire club and gave them the belief that they would win the Premier League again. I really believe without that performance from Kevin De Bruyne, they wouldn't have won the Premier League that season. Just even coming into this season now, I think it's the first time that Liverpool have had, without a doubt, the best team in the Premier League. Even when Man City and Liverpool were fighting it out, you could say even Liverpool had the best 11, perhaps. It was really close. But Man City just always had the numbers. They always had the depth to beat Liverpool. Just pure money spent. And Kevin De Bruyne. Whereas now, especially if Liverpool sign Isak, Liverpool undoubtedly have the best team in the Premier League. Like I said, I believe Kevin De Bruyne is a top 5 midfielder of all time. I think when you talk about Modric, Iniesta, Xavi, Zidane, I believe Kevin De Bruyne is in the company of those other players. I think you could make a case for De Bruyne being better than any of them. All of them, in fact. Now, I wouldn't say he is, but I believe he's on that level. Also, Man City's other legends, like Bernardo Silva, Edison, Ilkay Gundogan, they're still there, but they're not the same. And those have been massive players for Man City. They're also Man City and Premier League legends. And this is where the thumbnail comes into it, because when I look at someone like Phil Foden, for example, who's meant to be the Kevin De Bruyne replacement, I think it's going to set Man City up for failure, because I believe everyone in England has put him on a pedestal as the next, for example, Rooney, when he's just not that. Let me give you an example, right? Kevin De Bruyne, just 2 years ago, does he get into, how many teams does he get into the Premier League? If I say to you, I've got a list here, does he get into Arsenal's team over Odegaard? Yes. Well, does Foden? No. Does he get into Liverpool's team over Wirtz? Kevin De Bruyne would have. Phil Foden doesn't. Does he get into Chelsea's team over Palmer? Kevin De Bruyne would. Phil Foden doesn't. Okay, what about Man United? Because De Bruyne would certainly get in over Bruno. Would Phil Foden? No. Let's take it even further. Aston Villa. Would Aston Villa fans have taken Kevin De Bruyne over Morgan Rogers? Absolutely. Would they take Phil Foden over Morgan Rogers? No. And we can keep going. Crystal Palace, right? Would they take Kevin De Bruyne over Ebreze? Yes, absolutely. But there's not a chance they would take Phil Foden over him. We can even take it further. West Ham, would they take Phil Foden over Lucas Paqueta? I don't think so. Now, this is the last one. Would Phil Foden get into Nottingham Forest's team over Morgan Gibbs-White? Would Nottingham Forest fans swap Foden for Gibbs-White? And I don't believe they would. Kevin De Bruyne would literally ease into that team, and he crushes Morgan Gibbs-White for talent and ability and performances and everything. So the drop off for me is like astonishingly big, because we're now talking about a player that needs to. The manager is Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola, with the money that he spends at Man City, has to be competing, at least a minimum, be competing for every trophy. And you have a number 10 that you're kind of building around, that you're saying you wouldn't sell for 500 million. He said that a few years ago about Foden. Player of the season. Incredible talent. Not seen anything since Messi. But this is a player that I don't think gets in Nottingham Forest's team over Morgan Gibbs-White. I mean, this is like a personal thing. I just don't think Foden is as good as people have made out. I think his reputation has just carried him for a very long time. Whereas people talk about, can he be world class or is he world class? I just see him as a good Premier League player. We look at the players, why someone would win a league, and we look at Arsenal. We've got Saliba, you could make the case, is a reason why they would. Gabriel. You have Declan Rice. You have Martin Odegaard. I know Martin Odegaard last year wasn't very good, but we know he can be astonishing. We've got Saka. We've got potentially Gyökeres now as well. That's 6 players at Arsenal that I can name that would be a reason as to why they would win the league. If I go to Liverpool, we can look at Alisson, Van Dijk, Gravenberch, McAllister, Florian Wirtz now, who is a world-class talent, maybe a world-class player. Salah, potentially Isak. You're looking at 7 players there. If we look at Man City now, today, right this second, who are the players? It would be Ruben Diaz, Rodri, and Erling Haaland. You've got 3. They're not as guaranteed, nowhere near, in fact. Now, they have a lot of other players like Kusanov, James Trafford, even, Ait Nouri is a good signing. We'll have to see what level he can get to. Reindeers, I'll talk about him a little bit more in a second. Like, he could be a potential one. Marmoush, of course, but I can't say that right now. I mean, he's had one good season, or one really good season in his career. So you can't put them at this level yet. Maybe Doku can if he improves, perhaps Savinho, but we haven't seen it yet from these players. Ryan Cherki, Oscar Bob, no doubt these have unbelievable talent, but you can't put them with a Salah who's actually done it for nearly, 8 years or something crazy. And if we do talk about Rangers quick, because I want to talk about him, I do think that's an amazing signing for Man City. He's a player in the Euros a couple years ago that I thought was outstanding. Now, I did this with Gakpo, right? I saw him in the Euros. He was, Jamie Carragher was coming out and telling everyone how bad he is and useless. And he's too slow for the Premier League. I thought he was unbelievable in the Euros, Gakpo. And I said, I think he's going to have a big year. And he did. So I feel like my Euros, I have a bit of pedigree there. I have a bit of... I've done this before with a Netherlands player, and I'm going to do it again with Rangers, because I thought he was amazing in that Euros. I was really impressed. It was my first time watching him, and he stuck out a mile. Really adds stability to Man City when you have Rodri and Rangers as the midfield too. And this is a player, by the way, that can drop deep, receive the ball, very good on the ball, doesn't lose it, but he can also go forward and play amazing passes. Look at his pass versus Como, one of the best passes you'll ever see. He also scored 15 goals last year. He's a really good finisher alongside being a fantastic midfielder. So For me, him and Cunha at Man United have been the best two signings of the summer for me so far. I'm not saying Man City will be bad, especially with that signing. I think that changes a lot. Like I said, since 2018, Man City have had the best manager, the best players, the best talent, the best tactics, the best work ethic, the best control of football matches, 4 league titles, a treble. This season for me feels very different to coming into it to the previous 7 or 8 years. That's the point of this video really, is just to say that this isn't the same Man City. And when you look at the first 11, I'm not saying it doesn't look strong. It still is very good. But can we be sure that someone like James Trafford is as good as Ederson? Absolutely no way. Matheus Nunes is at right back. You know, how good was Kyle Walker for Man City for so many years? He was a huge reason why they won the Champions League. Matheus Nunes? Don't think there's enough consistency there to win a Premier League title.